These my dance make it hurt.
Welcome back, everybody. Reilly's Gaff. We're back again. Can you believe it?
Buzzing to be back.
I bet you can believe it because
it's a weekly.
It's occurrence. A weekly kind of thing that's happening now. So not that hard to believe. But we're back and we're happy to be in the G4 studio as always.
Beautiful studio.
God bless G4 claiming everything.
Claiming for
everything possible.
Claiming for free kicks,
penalties, throw-ins, everything, mate. Horn up. That's
whatever
fucking yours.
Whatever you need to claim for G4 claims, we've got that sorted.
But we do have two guests in the studio, and it's two boys that I met through doing youth work. Met them working in a high school, and I thought it'd be good to get them on and talk a bit about sort of community work and sort of gang sort of stuff, and maybe get into a bit of this, a bit of that.
So they came from two different backgrounds, and it'd be good to kind of get into this.
So first we've got Callum, man. Welcome to the show, Callum.
Thanks for having me, Evan.
And as you can tell,
both of you.
That's
alright, bro. I'm used to it.
That happens all the time, mate. So obviously Callum, as you can tell probably by talking, is not from here. So where is it you're from, Callum?
I'm from London, West London, Shepherd's Bush specifically. So long way from home, obviously, but I've been up here probably 4.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I came up here initially to do sociology at uni, and then about over 2 years ago now, got into doing community work with the same organisation as Kev. And just it was always stuff I was very interested in, but I just kind of fell into it, and the rest has been history really. And just kind of discovered that, that was me. That was, that was where my passion is.
So see, obviously Shepherd's Bush, I've heard a lot about Shepherd's Bush. I know the name, but I don't really know. Do you know anything about Shepherd's Bush?
No, really, apart from that one.
Is there a bush in Shepherd's Bush?
Aye. There's one shepherd and one bush.
Aye.
And
there's lots of shrubbery.
Really? But so what kind of, like, we know like, so I know places in London, I know that notoriously bad, right? Like Peckham, Newham, places like this, but like what's Shepherd's Bush like in comparison to the places?
Shepherd's Bush is a fascinating area, man. I absolutely adore it. I miss it. Shout out Shepherd's Bush. And actually I'm going to take this opportunity to shout out my friend's brand, Don Cavacci. I believe it's at Don Cavacci on Instagram, www.doncavacci.com, West London brand, very old friend of mine. Up and coming brand. So go and check them out.
We'll put that info in the description.
Thank you. But yeah, Shepherd's Bush is a very, very interesting area, man. It's the home of Queen's Park Rangers. That is possibly what football fans might know it for. Loftus Road, now called the Cayenne Prince Stadium, was named after a young boy that got killed in Shepherd's Bush.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Rest in peace to him. He's and they set up a foundation after him. I believe it was his dad set it up. He was 15 and he was a QPR academy player. And they changed, Loftus Road had been called that.
I know, I never even knew it changed, do you know that?
Yeah, well, I mean, people still refer to it as Loftus Road, but, respect to QPR for doing that. Loftus Road is a beautiful old football ground, man. Right in the middle. The biggest estate in Shepherd's Bush is called White City, and all of the streets within White City are named after battles in the Boer War in South Africa in the 1800s.
Oh, really?
Whenever that was.
Whenever
that was. And so they built. So South Africa Road, Bloemfontein Road, all names.
Why is that?
It I don't want to get this wrong. White City was built in the 50s, I think, and it was just probably some bullshit war. I mean, it was
some
a horrible
fucking slave guy,
racist, war,
slave going on, man.
But yeah, so Loftus Road is right in the middle of White City. Proper, I mean, a sprawling estate, absolutely massive, and I'd say the atmosphere in Loftus Road as a result is fantastic. But
it's like a community kind of
big time, yeah. Shepherd's Bush, back in the day, it was a big spot for Irish immigration. So a lot of the old pubs, like Irish pubs, the Irish population there are pretty old and pretty withered now. They've had a long stay. Quite a lot of them in the pubs.
Get them out, is that what you're saying? Sounds like where it's coming from.
No dogs, no Irish.
We'll not have any of that in this podcast. None of that in this podcast.
No, they built Shepherd's Bush, man. So all ties to the Irish community.
Yeah.
Right, so obviously we met Callum. I don't want to leave Kev here sitting too long, just tanning his water. Imagine we just imagine we just nibble, like you're just sitting there, just like this guy's just But obviously we'll get Kev in as well. So I met Kev, then same work with Callum in high school. So Kev, where is it you grew up, Govan?
I grew up in a place called Drummoyne, which is in Govan. So in West Govan, so just sort of kind of on the outskirts. And for anybody that doesn't know, obviously Govan's in the south side, but kind of right at the edge of the city.
Aye. Shipbuilding.
Shipbuilding community, mate. Yes, very famous for a few things. We've got our shipyards. We get Jimmy Reid, great trade unionists. Certain football manager, Sir Alex Ferguson.
Govan, that's what he is.
There's a wee football team there as well.
Harmony Row.
Harmony Row.
Harmony Row. I remember them from back in the day.
I've literally just left him there. That's Sir Alex Ferguson Park, isn't it?
Is that?
Govan team, aye.
Govan, there's a pure community spirit in Govan.
Right, Glasgow Rangers as well. The football teams, we may as well mention them.
Alright, we're all accepting. A podcast open to all.
Open to all. Very inclusive, this podcast. But so see, Govan, obviously, I think anybody that's in Scotland, Govan's got a mad reputation. Like, when people say they're for Govan and that, I suppose, but like, see, Rabsy Nisbet, he said he was for Govan, didn't he?
Well, that was it, mate. It was, I think there's a stereotype about the area, which is, it's unfair to an extent. I think all stereotypes carry a wee bit of truth based on what's happening. But Govan's a place that's got a strong history for being, like I said, sort of trade unionist, kind of on the left, fighting for workers' rights, fighting like rent strikes and stuff like that. A really rich history in that, but it just seems to be in the deindustrialisation period, so for maybe about the 80s, when the work starts drying up in the shipyards and stuff like that, but all the pubs stay open, do you know what I mean? They don't replace because it wasn't just the shipyards, there was something like 98 different firms attached that were running about Govan and Kinnan Park, like boiler makers, steelworks, people that were doing embroidery stuff, everything.
And when that gets taken away, there's only one kind of way things will go on it.
So it's like a deck of, what do you call it, a house of cards, you take one bit away and the rest it starts to fall. And I believe that it's just in that period, that maybe 30 year period, where a lot of, you know, and you see this everywhere, when people have their culture taken away from them, they tend to replace it with other stuff that aren't too good for them, do you know what I mean? Everywhere you look, anywhere in the world.
Unless there's other opportunities there to thrive, you know what I mean? But it was kind of left with nothing after the 80s and 90s and that, wasn't it? Like, they kind of...
A lot of people, like things like addiction rates and stuff like that, just go through the roof. So then it becomes an easy target. And I think Govan's always been a target anyway, because if you go back to the early 70s with the working in the shipyards, people don't realise the extent to which that sort of affected the government at the time. So it was the Tories were in at the time, it was Ted Heath that was in, and they were basically pushing forward with, you know, the new capitalist sort of bill, the neoliberalism and stuff like that, trying to push their kind of policies forward. So it was like, break everything down, break these communities down. Who were these guys along the Clyde that had the cheek to sort of stand up to them? And they didn't just stand up, they worked for 18 months for foot wages, and they finished their order book. They marched from here to Downing Street to raise awareness about what they were doing. John Lennon sent $5,000 up to them in a truck full of roses for some reason. Up to Govan, up to the shipyards.
Poetic, innit?
That's it, mate, it's symbolic.
What do you think they were like when that came like that? What the fuck we got to do with this?
I would be doing with this. The only Lenin they'd have probably been talking about that time would have been like the old Lenin, do you know what I mean? Like the communist Lenin, no John Lennon.
Lenin when
Lenin when I, mate.
Neil Lennon. They'll be talking about him now down there, man. But
that's what I think the stereotype's based on, mate, just that the last few
decades. It's a stigmatism, innit?
They've kind of not been able to shift that stereotype almost, hadn't you know, like...
I think you hit the nail on the head there, mate. They made Drab C, and it's, do you know, this is what I loved about Still Game. It was like a fantasy land. Everybody recognised it. Wasn't picking on an area, mate, but everybody recognised it as a scheme, and this is, we all identify with this. But in Govan, they made it specifically about Govan, and I always remember walking home from school. I had to go to school in Lourdes because it was a Catholic school, and it was the closest one to St Jerry's when it was going to shut down, so I had to walk through Cardonald to come home, and we'd always see Rav C getting filmed.
Aye.
In Cardonald, they wouldn't come into Govan to do it. Most of the scenes, a very small part.
Was there a feeling of like animosity towards Rav C Nisbet in the community at that time?
Aye, in the end.
Because what it turned out to be. Like,
because everybody started to feel like they were tarnished by that. And probably not everybody, right? So as I'm growing up, my mum and dad, they thought it was funny. They saw it as a comedy programme. It was, I would say, people maybe my sister's generation, so maybe 10 year older than me, they were the ones that started calling it out. And kind of glad they did, because it should be called.
Looking back, especially if you're fairer, it's alright, you're no fairer, you're like, oh, Govan, blah blah blah, but you're fairer, like, and they're like you're saying, the shipyards and all that, it dried up, and it led to people turning out to like Rav C Nisbet. No, that's an exaggerated character, but it probably led to a lot of people ending up like that, and they're making a comedy out of that situation when it's not really a funny situation.
It's tragic, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
When Kev, a few weeks back, because I'd never really explored Govan too much, and Kev was just giving me a lift home, and we hopped out to just have a look at some building work, building work that was going on that Kev was a little suspect about, because he doesn't like people touching his shipyards. We walked around it, and there is, I mean, they tried to make it a heritage site, didn't they? But
there was
a feeling about it, man. It sounds, but you can feel you're standing on history. It's all still there.
I felt like that when we went.
It's a wild place.
Like when we went, there was a day, because I'm the same as you, mate. Like, I've lived in Glasgow all my life, and Govan was a place I'd never really actually been in. Oh, knew about Govan, drove through it, the hospital and all that, but I'd never walked about Govan. There was never a reason for me really to do that. And then we went one day with Kev, me and Sean, and Kev was showing us about, and this was this, and this building used to be this, and now it's ran down, and it's so interesting. It is a pure historical area, isn't it?
It's a fascinating area. It's a great community.
It's a fascinating area. Aye. It's a fascinating area.
I know what you mean when you're saying like you could feel something like stirring there. Like there's somewhere, I think it's near Coat Bridge, there's like an old coal mine. It's like, you can go, it's like a museum now. There is, and it's actually, is it called Summerlee?
Summerlee Heritage.
And see when you go there, that's the exact same. You see the wee tiny houses and see all this stuff that has been kind of preserved. I don't know if that's maybe...
When you get into the dry docks in Govan, right, you're looking at rope like that thick and like as long as the street. So these are the kind of ropes that they would have to tie up, obviously massive boats that were coming in, massive bits of steel and old rails where they obviously used to have, because they didn't have like forklifts and stuff like that, and stuff like that. And it's fascinating, man. But did we know, was that the day, did we know pick the bricks up and we were looking at the bricks and Sean googled one?
Aye.
And these bricks get made in Kilmarnock.
Sean took a brick. Aye. Sean we seen this brick, right, and Sean picks it up and there's like writing on it, wasn't there? And he was like, I'm going to fucking Google that. And then he was like, I'm taking it. That's a bit of history. No the way Sean is. Like, he just made a decision on that spot. And then like, as we're exploring, he's just walking about with this brick, just like, and he actually put it in his motor and drove home with it. I'm like, what's he done with that? But that would be like a good wee, like a doorstop or something. Like, I mean, it would.
2 bookends like on a bookshelf or something.
I was going to say, I hope it's not being used as a doorstop.
His back door.
Talking about Sean, actually, like, it's weird because he isn't fae Govan or like anywhere near it, and he pure, like, he's actually told me mad stuff, like went on this big story about it and the 80s and all this mad stuff.
Kev's infectious though, because I've been telling my flatmates about Govan ever since.
You said it before. Everybody you've met through and about the area.
I love it, mate.
Aye, and I think it's like a source of inspiration. So like, obviously you grow up, right, and you hear about you know what the stereotype is, right, and you play up to it, you know. So it would be wrong to say, oh, that's negative. When you go out, you play up to it. I mean, when you're younger.
The thing, mate, that's the exact same way you're saying, like playing up to a stereotype, and that's the exact same way. Like, I'm for Springburn, And it's like it's different because like when my gran talks about Springburn back in the day, it was like the pure. I think it was like the first train station that went to the town or something, or like one of the first, and it was pure popping. Like there was all. And she shows me these pictures of the high street. It's just everything looks pure amazing. And now you walk up and it's pure. But that's the same.
That's there's so many places like that.
I've never made it to Springburn. It's one of the places I like going to places where people say don't bother. That's exactly where I
love Springburn as well, mate. No, I did genuinely, but it's the exact same as you say. Like when people go, "Oh, you for Springburn, mate," and you go, "I'm for Springburn," and you're like, "What am I talking about?" Like,
there's certain places, man, that'll give you a wee swagger and a wee spring in your step.
Easterhouse, Springburn,
Poso,
Govan.
But then there's other places where that same upbringing, that same stigma. Like when you walk into a different place, it has the opposite effect on you. And you actually feel a bit run down. But sorry, that's what I'm saying. Like you embrace that and you internalise the kind of ideas about yourself and about your community. It was only when I started to find out about things like guys like Jimmy Reid and a woman like Mary Barber and these kind of movements that I actually started my community and the history of my community actually became like a source of inspiration. And Jimmy Reid was a great trade union.
Talk about the speech you were telling me he delivered.
Well, this guy,
tell us a bit about him.
1972, so this guy grew up in Ibrox, studied in Elder Park Library and I read, that's where he used to go and read. Rather than get out hanging about with his pals and that, he'd go down there, get clued up. He started, got his apprenticeship in Govan shipyards when he was 16. He got sent as part of a delegate over to the Soviet Union. So he came back with all these sort of advanced ideas about socialism and communism and workers' rights and started to put things in place like workers' councils and stuff like that. Now, the Clyde, obviously, with the nature of the building boats and stuff like that, the guys have always kind of sat on the left anyway and have always had that kind of structure. But that's what I'm saying, he was coming back with like this advanced idea and these advanced theories about how to sort of put that in place. So he started doing that for 16-year-old, worked his way up and eventually became a shop steward in the yards. And as I said earlier, like, the industry was threatened, the government was refusing to put money into the industry, so there was a logbook there that had to get £6 million investment so that it could finish the orders, which would have generated something like £95 million at the time. So it was big business, but the government said it's a lame duck industry. That was the term they used. And these guys, it just means why would they put money into that? It's a lame duck.
Useless.
Useless. Totally useless. Right, so pouring money into a dark hole, basically, that's what they were saying. So obviously these guys' livelihood, you know what I mean, and their culture. So they took offence to that and they said, we're going to take over the yards. So they took over the yards instead of going on strike and locking themselves out, because they knew if they'd done that, the owners of the yards, who were 5 owners, would have just come in and shut the gates, and then that's game over. So they said, we're going to have a working, so we're going to work to finish it, and we're going to do it without wages. And that's what I was saying. So that's how John Lennon that started sending money up. Miners, all your other workers, all your other industrialists across the whole length of the UK started to support these guys. And when they marched for George Square to Downing Street, the march to Downing Street, they were joined by like miners from Newcastle, guys everywhere they went, steel workers in Birmingham, all this kind of stuff.
Was this all because of that one guy?
Because of this one incident, but because of guys like Jimmy Reid, Jimmy Reilly, Sammy Barr
Who was the woman you mentioned, Mary?
Mary Barber, so that would be in the 70s. Mary Barber was First World War, most of the guys are away fighting, and the fact is the landlords basically come in and put the rents up. So they were saying to the women at the time, because it was women that were left in the community, they were saying, right, you're going to put your rent up, if you don't like it, right, you can do one. So they had them by the neck and basically they were getting away with it. So Mary Barber, she was well known at the time for sort of advocating women's rights and stuff at the time, but bearing in mind what time this is, guys, you know what I mean, how far back this is, and it was probably a dangerous game to be playing at the time. She was saying to women at the time, have 2 kids. Don't, why are you having 10 kids to this guy who doesn't even spend time with you? You know what I mean? He goes to work, he goes to drink, and then you have a weigh-in, and then what you're left to remain. So she was talking about stuff like that. She organised the women. it ended up being called Mary Barbers Army. So when the sheriff officers were coming in to evict somebody, what they would do is, and this is standard practice now, you see it in South America all the time, the pots and pans. So we'll sit in the street, the bar, the pots and pans, right? So this is in Govan, like over 100 years ago. What the woman would do, would come down, get the pots and pans, start banging it after closed doors, whistling out the windows, and then everybody would start to come out. So
you've got a spectacle,
mate. But not only that, you've got women who are going to go a step further. So the amount of stories about guys being stripped naked, pelted with flowers, eggs, and chased out of Govan, you know what I mean? And that's what these women done, and that's what people need to realise the role that women have played and how Govan's developed and how the Clyde side's developed, because we all talk about Jimmy Reid and all that, even during going back to the work in now in the 70s, it was the women that held all that together. It was the women that were doing everything in the background that you couldn't see.
Big up the woman.
Too right.
And that's what I'm saying, this is a history of this wee place.
Well, I think women so often get written out of history, don't they?
So obviously Govan's got a rich history, but what about Shepherd's Bush? So obviously we kind of know about Govan, but we know nothing about Shepherd's Bush.
Right.
No, so Shepherd's Bush, as I said, when you understand London as an entity, like it's been expanding at an insane rate, you know what I mean, for the last however many years. And Shepherd's Bush, if you look at it on the map, it's quite far out. Like if it was, I'm just trying to think if I could compare it in terms of distance to Glasgow out west, maybe it'd be past Partick, something like that. But because of the transport links, it's very close now in relation to, it's not close to the end of the tube line or anything like that. But so when it was expanding, it was a massive Irish community, as I said. So huge Irish emigration into Shepherd's Bush, and they really built, culturally, what Shepherd's Bush was to become. But now Shepherd's Bush is representative of the rest of London, which is one of the most multicultural places you will go to on earth, in my opinion.
London in general?
Yeah, Shepherd's Bush. Like you go down my high street. I mean,
what nationalities would we see if we went to Shepherd's Bush? Tell me some that we wouldn't find here, usually, like Somali,
Somali population, Afghan, Iraqi. I mean, you name it. There's not a nationality that you will not find there. But then you have this very interesting dynamic of old Irish, Polish immigration from when they joined the European Union. The high street, Uxbridge Road, there's not that many shops in English. It's either Arabic or it's Polish but when you grow up with that, I love that.
Mate, that's class.
I love that. It's that's home for me. And it was, the beautiful thing about London is that when you grow up in that environment, you don't know any different.
I seen a thing once, and it was like a picture of somewhere in London, and it was like all the shops, and it was some mad far right arsehole fucking K-up. I think it was like LBC somebody for there tweeted it, and they tweeted like, oh, look at they're not one English word in sight or something horrible like that, and then somebody replied, would you prefer this? And it was just every shop said pie beans. It's fucking brilliant having
a fuck. Mate, I really couldn't, because it's like all of their kids, they're Londoners, they're from Shep, they all talk the same, they all have the same. Do you know what I mean? So it's a community spirit. It's not, and it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's colourful, and as we see now, I mean, I think London, musically, culturally, is now getting the global recognition that it deserves, and that's what happens from a melting pot.
Did you grow? So, see, when you were growing up, did you would you say you enjoyed growing up where you grew up?
Definitely. So I was lucky, I came from a loving family, a complex family. And initially it was just me and my mum. I kind of had the reversing, and then my parents got back together, and me, my parents and my siblings all moved in together, moved into Shepherd's Bush. Me and my mum were living in a different area, but there was emotional and financial stability at home. So I think that I experienced a significant amount of trauma in my teenage years, and I was a complex teenager. But you know, I was from a stable family.
Yeah.
And so I adored living in Shepherd's Bush, you know, and it was, but don't, you know, don't, it was exciting because it was, you know, there was always something going on. Always something going on.
So there was even when you were growing up, was there a lot of sort of gang violence and stuff like that when you were younger?
There was. I mean, there was all, you know, there was always dangers lurking around the corner. I mean, I things have gotten worse, 100%. I feel like London and Glasgow have maybe done a little switcheroo on in terms of, you know, how bad the violence is, because obviously you guys had the reputation in the late 90s, 2000s, and then you all talked about how things have gotten better now. I mean, we'll get into that, but you know, London was always bad, but you know, the last 5 years have been horrific. West London was I'll speak about West London a little bit because it's an interesting area as a whole. Like, West London is unique in terms of London because there's massive wealth disparity in West London. Right. You have like, for example, Notting Hill, which falls under the borough of Kensington and Chelsea, which is the richest borough in the United Kingdom, has Ladbroke Grove and estates within West Kent, Chelsea, which are some of the roughest estates. Grenfell was in that constituency. Grenfell's not far from my house, and you know, the big scandal about Grenfell is that it was the reason the cladding was on Grenfell was because it was an eyesore to the wealthy elites of Notting Hill.
That just makes that whole thing even worse.
And those estates in Notting Hill and Ladbroke Grove were always and still are notorious, you know, but they are next to £7-8 million houses. On the next street.
That's the kind of thing that
it's
you hear
wild.
about. It's the kind of thing you hear about in Brazil and shit. And you go, that's fucking terrible, and you don't realise it's actual.
Even in like Glasgow, like you go like Partick, and then you've got like, see, like the area, the West End. There's wee areas like you've got like Hindland, and then you've got like Mary Hill,
Jordan Hill,
and these areas are like you drive 5 minutes and it's big, huge, half a million to a million houses, and then 5 minutes up the road and it's just council houses and poverty, and it's
look at how close like Pollock Shields and Govan Hall and that. Like Pollock Shields, some of the gaffs and Pollock Shields, some of the gaffs there are beautiful. Do you know what I mean? You're talking like probably £1 million upwards for them. You get to Govan Hall, man, it's like fucking Beirut, do you know what I mean? And it's a 5-minute walk.
It's crazy.
There's places that it's obviously this has happened in London for years and all, but it's like people are getting priced out their houses
completely
for gentrification. Man, Glasgow's terrible for that, but I don't know. But
I feel like that's getting worse with, see, like neoliberalist politics. It's like everybody's just, see, the people who are living in these big massive houses, they're getting taught to no worry about the people that are in these communities. They're getting, worry about yourself, prosper on your own, you don't need to give back to these people, like they're not looking out for you. It's like individualist like mindset. It's horrible.
That's an offshoot of capitalism, and
definitely it's an acceleration and an advancement of capitalism. And the thing that they get off on is that this is a system that anybody can thrive on.
But it's not at all.
No, they say, why should you feel bad for this guy? It's only because he's not made the right steps to get to where we are, and that makes me sick.
And as I say, obviously in London you get Eton. Is it Eton high schools in London? Is it?
That's a boarding school out of town.
It's like every prime minister that's ever lived has went there. I mean, like,
but the thing about London as a concept, as a city, is that it's not, in my opinion, it's not sustainable. Because you're pricing out people like that at the rate at which you are, and like, you know, central London is just a hollowed out core. Like no one lives there.
That's what I was going to say. People you see people and they're like, where, like some people I've seen like say they're from central London and they're like, no one lives in central London.
It's just no, they don't. It is literally a hollow. All that romanticism about, you know, central London. Oxford Street is a shithole, just for the record.
Is it?
It's just shops.
I've never been to London.
It's busy. It's horrible, isn't it? It's you know, I never go to central London ever. There is no reason to go there.
Is there like no heart in it?
No, it's all owned by foreign money. It is all money being laundered for it. That's it.
What about like the markets getting like? There's been a few over the year, like the past like 20 years. Markets getting shut down for shopping centres, isn't there?
Yeah, of course.
Like that's I think that's like taking away the pure character of London. Like that's like the markets.
Like, like look at the way like we when we're growing up, the image we get of London is EastEnders, right? Because that's what's on the TV here. So all the wheelers and dealers, at the market selling fruit, selling this, and like that's what you're saying. Like they're moving in and they're written these things. It's horrible. Who wants a shitty wee market? Put a lovely big shopping centre there.
And
it's nae heart. Oh, it looks fucking brilliant, and it's got a lift, and it's 41
It's just
floors.
the same as every other city mall that you build in a city, isn't
Exactly.
it?
It's a copy and paste job, isn't it? With the architect.
I stayed in Brixton for nearly 2 years, and one of the best bits about Brixton is on a Saturday, we can go to any day, but on a Saturday I used to get up early, take a wee walk along into the centre, and it would be the wee markets, and it would be brilliant, you know what I mean? What obviously like Caribbean food and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing. But just what I say about like central London, like my partner stayed down there for years. I met my partner down there, and she's got a few pals, and one of her pals, her dad bought her a flat on what Vauxhall Bridge is. So it's like this, obviously, like you're saying, the romantic notion of staying there and looking onto the river and stuff like that. But like, this girl's away on holiday, Merlin shares in London. Know what I mean? It's like she's super rich. Know what I mean?
It's also not where you'd end up getting a gaff in central London, and you'd be like, it's not where the vibes are at, man.
No.
It's just not where the But Kev's. I think Kev's a very... I love talking to Kev about London because this is the same way maybe I've got interesting takes here because listening to what Kev's interpretation of London was...
that's interesting.
It's fascinating.
Well, so like you tell me, right, because I wanted to ask you, right, so you're Shepherd's Bush, right, London, and you know... The difference when you moved up here to the people, the way the people act, the way everything is, like what's stuff that stuck out to you most, like glaringly obvious, you were like, whoa, this is well different.
Yeah, God, where to start on that, man? It's been, I love this city, hence I'm still here. You know, I've had a fantastic time, and I think I'll start, the first thing I'll start, I always say to Kev, like, oh, I'd love to be a Glaswegian in London. That'd be a fucking blast, man. But like, actually, you know, being a Londoner, being an Englishman up here has been fantastic. You know, the idea that I've ever received any hostility. I mean, as long as you're just not an English prick, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, as long as you're not. Like, I couldn't give a fuck about England. You know what I mean?
See the English prick thing that we get. Just speaking from my opinion, right? That whole thing is like people, a guy from London coming up here and acting like. The way you act, I'm too good for that. Like, but you don't do that. You like embrace it and love it, and so that's how we're so accepting of you. Do you know what I mean?
And I feel accepted, and you know, I owe my career to this city. I owe a huge formation of my character to this city. And you know, when I started working here, I was working out in Easterhouse, in East End. So you can imagine, you know. Shepherd's Bush to Easterhouse, you know, on many levels there were similarities, but on massive levels there was huge differences. But I just fucking loved it, man, because it was like the characters was just, and I'm this English cunt that's been dropped in the middle of it, and I just like, and the reaction to that. It
must be like you going to the zoo or something.
It was no.
Sorry, mate. I said it.
It was just unbelievable, and it still is. Like it's I mean, you know, the level of humour up here, particularly amongst young people, even like the level of wit developed by young Glaswegians aged 5, 6 is just astonishing.
It's like a defence mechanism. Like you need to have, you need to be able to fight like fuck or have good parts, and if you don't have any of them, you're not going to survive.
Kev will testify for this. I mean, I get the shit ripped out of me.
Oh, I know.
In school, man, there's some of the kids in the school, and I know the ones you're thinking about when you're talking, like. They're right a shite, but and it's like you're saying, mate, they know that so gallus.
You would think that they're 8 foot tall the way they act.
Mate, that's
That's brilliant, man.
And see hearing Callum talking about that, like now how you get people fae here going, this place is fucking shite, innit? And you're like, it's not.
But very self-deprecating. We always talk about that, how we are so like, and it's almost like.
I think that's a natural thing for when you come from somewhere, isn't it? You know, if you've grown up there and you like. It's natural to be self-deprecating.
I think the west of Scotland, I think's known for it, but then it could be, I don't know, you're a sociologist, not what I mean, you tell us, but I think the west of Scotland's known for sort of beating myself down, man. Like, just not giving
when there's
myself
so much
credit.
good things to kind of celebrate about it. But that's why it's a complete opposite in Govan. It's like in Govan, it's like, no, like we're proud of this.
There is a hard sense of that in Govan.
There's how could you put it, man? There's a strain that runs through Govan, right? But for me, it's like imagine it's like a wee stream, you know what I mean? You could actually work on that, turn that into projects, use it as a fucking natural resource, you know what I mean? To inspire young people, not young people, everybody. Because there'll be people in that community now, I know there are people in that community now that will be in their 40s, 50s, that won't even know these stories just because they're fighting battles in everyday life, and that's fair enough. You know what I mean?
And you've no got time to sit and read about your like heritage and that.
That's it, mate. And why are we not hearing about this stuff in schools? Why am I learning about German U-boats and how many fucking guns were on it, what kind of guns it was for 3 years in
Sherman
school?
tanks and all that.
Absolutely.
Learn about our own history.
And it tells about the Second World War. It didn't even teach us the truth about that either.
I watched something pure interesting about like Glasgow. I for some reason I was like looking into like Scottish people throughout history, like supporting other countries like in wars and shit. There was like things called like the something brigade.
The International Brigade.
International Brigade.
Away to fight the fascists in Spain, mate.
Away to fight Franco.
Away to fight Franco. That's
the Spanish.
There was tons of signs.
Why did we not learn about that, mate? And also the Chile. Is it Chile? The guy in the
revolution there, wasn't it?
And like
leftist revolution.
Aye, and the Scottish like stopped manufacturing something that would have aided
General Pinochet. Something to do with aeroplane engines. Something like that.
Aye.
Rolls Royce was in Hillington Estate.
Rolls Royce
decided, we're not going to build these because you're fucking giving
and it's been hundreds of times. But see, you read all these wee daft things. It's like Scottish people standing up for oppressed when it's like you could argue we were oppressed. Like, do you know what I mean? There's people, as you say, in Hillington that would have been like working men that were like, no, we've got to do something good for this. Do you know what I mean? We still learn about shit like that instead of like,
our own history instead of just learning about Germans and that.
There's a wee statue that sits on the side of the Clyde, and there's a saying, a phrase underneath it in Sean.
Ne Parizan.
Aye, but it's not. It's got the I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And it was a present for the Spanish people that they sent over for the people that went to fight for it. And that's why we not celebrating all this stuff.
We don't even know about it. Like, I'm learning right now about this.
I used to pass that. Years ago, I stayed in a homeless unit, right, called Hope House, right, a pure joke, man, because it was anything but. I used to have to walk around the Clyde to get into Govan, and it wasn't like I was hitting my bottom and all that. It was just a rough period, you know what I mean? I wasn't like fucking living on the street and all that. It was just living in this unit for a bit. But I used to pass that every day, man, that statue. And that was just, I just wondered for ages, what the fuck is this? Because it's just a weird wee statue.
It's mad we don't learn about that.
There's another one that's like it looks like a gravestone kind of. It's big though, and it says like thank you, and it lists every person that died. Like fighting.
You see them a lot in parks and stuff.
No,
like
but it's like it's present for the Spanish.
Specifically,
and
right.
It says like Ne Parizan, which means well, not pass or something. They look it up for me. Something like that.
Well,
there's a
not pass.
Moan in Scotland or something.
It's like No Parizan, they say, but then there's a film called Ne Parizan, which plug that, it's fucking brilliant. Just watch that. It's really good. That's all about that, so it is. And just how resilient against like oppression some Scottish people were through history, you know what I mean?
That's natural in us, I think. But I just see going back to like obviously your upbringings and stuff like that. Obviously you are both in community work, both of you, and I think it takes a certain person. Anybody that I've met doing community work takes a certain character, a certain background, a certain personality that gets into youth work, that not even youth work specifically, but community work, wanting to help people that are in maybe vulnerable situations like that, and that. So obviously growing up, Kev, in Govan, like you obviously found yourself in the young team, didn't you?
Well,
get a drink of water before I start.
Straight body. Actually, right, so the gang thing, right, was this is a thing that's probably different for London, and Callum will be able to speak more about that. So for me, it was never like, you know, people talk about gangs, they always talk about initiations and stuff like that, and then it's as if, blood brothers now, and you're in this for life, and then it's like, how do I get out of this shit, right? It was never like that. It was always merely a case of growing up, you'd be a kid, you'd be playing football on the street or whatever. The next time you'd be a bit of excitement, you know what I mean? The big ones would be running past you, and you'd see them sitting there the next minute, fucking bats and all that would come out. So you'd be like, we've got to go and watch this, right? This is better than what we're doing now, this is exciting, man. So you'd chase after that shit, and then time passes more and more until you maybe start to, you never really want to get involved. And you see,
It's not like a conscious decision you're making.
Like, oh, I can't, suppose there is
form
people
you need to sign, like, that's me, innit?
you know what I mean? It's like
conscripted.
But I think there is people that would love it if it was like that. I did have pals that were turned on by it for a very early age, right? But it was never for me. I remember being young and going to watch these things, seeing guys being caught and battered and going home and greeting, you know what I mean, to my ma.
But
so
traumatised sort of thing.
I just going home and being like, that wasn't right, man. You know what I mean? Just knowing that people shouldn't be doing this to each other. But then it happens all the time. And
you become desensitised to it.
To an extent, even though you still know it's wrong. But then bit by bit you kind of, and this is what I'm saying about kind of being drip fed into it. So even there would have been times when I would maybe be 14 where I would say, no, I'm no part of a gang. No, but I hang about with my pals. What do you do with your pals? Well, we go and fight. We go and spray other schemes on tour. You know what I mean? All that shit, right? But it never felt like you were part, because it was your pals that you grew up with. You know what I mean? It was only when I went to secondary school, so I mentioned earlier, I went to Lourdes, so I can't get removed, fell out of the road that a lot of my pals are on, to go to either Govan High or St Gerrard's. So I met new pals up there, and that opened up a sort of a different path for me, and that's when I joined a group of boys that felt more like a gang, you know what I mean? But I say that's only because I never grew up with them, and I was kind of coming from outside, and that's where I would say a lot of the nasty stuff happened, you know what I mean? Where I started getting involved in it, so it was like, oh wait, in fact, these boys like to do a bit of fighting, a bit of drinking. I grew up in a place where that was fucking every day, man. It was the norm, mate. That was like your bread and butter. People used to do that for an early age, so I was good at this, you know what I mean? And I just started sort of, like I was saying, about the stereotypes and playing up to the stereotypes. You're hanging about in Cardonald, but you're coming from Drummoyne, so you would obviously get older ones going, get back to where they came from, you wee fucking Jake, right? All this kind of stuff. But then at the same time, there would be lassies your own age and boys your own age that would think twice about, do you know what I mean? Maybe saying anything to you just because of that. So I kind of lived up to that, try to play up to that, and then you get into more fights, and then eventually, obviously, when I was 15, I get caught after boys were fighting the Pollock. I get caught, I get stabbed, bottled, all that kind of stuff. And I would say that was probably the point for a couple of years where I went, no, this is actually...
Fuck this.
No, it was actually like, this was good.
Oh, right.
Because no, it was like, that was the turning point, because that was the point where I felt as if all these other boys that had hung about me were all playing a game, you know what I mean? And I was like, no, I'm the fucking idiot, I've actually been done in. And it wasn't that bad, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
right, so it wasn't as bad, like... Because I imagine, right, I've not been in a gang, been in gang fights, whatever, but I imagine there's always... The fear of getting caught is... You probably realised it's not as bad as the fear you had in your head about it.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, if I had 20 boys, right, there was probably a group of about 20 of them there, and there'll be at least 10 of them getting into us, right, it's me and my pal. And I'm thinking to myself, these boys struggled to even get me on the ground. But these are boys that people spoke about every weekend. Oh, they stabbed this one, they've done this, they've done that. And it was a weird, twisted, warped sort of confidence that came out of that.
Like,
an invincibility almost,
like
it's almost like you went through the kind of worst possible thing that could happen to you, and you're actually alright after.
And actually, it kind of, for a short period of time, it felt as if it improved things. You know what I mean? Because I've been trying to get away from school for the year. I was notorious for dogging school, right? I hated it. I remember going back into school a couple of weeks after that happened, and this teacher, right, who I could do a full podcast on my relationship with this teacher, right, hated us, but it turned out he didn't really hate us that much. When I went back in, the day I walked in with my stitches and all that, and he was like, you can leave. And I say, I've been fucking, I've been trying to get out of school for years, man. And you tell me I can go now, I'm not even 16 yet. So it was like, I don't know, man, I kind of played up to the bad boy image a wee bit. Boys that were always popular in school, that people thought they were a bit tasty, a bit hard or whatever, they wouldn't even look at us in the eye. And I was like, there was a wee sense of
so that was like put on you. It's not as if you're walking about like that, it's because other people's reactions.
And then you sort of picked up on that's happening, and you're like, I'm quite respected now, sort of thing.
And you're too young, you're not conscious enough to think about what's happening.
Can you rationalise the actual relationship?
You can't, you just think this is natural. So I must be that type of guy. I mean, that's what you start to think. And I'm anything but that type of guy. So I started to get involved in things that still stymies now. So for a period of time, I remember directly after that happened, the Biggins in the scheme where I grew up obviously got wind of this, what had happened. And Drummoyne, so where I grew up, Drummoyne had been pulled down when I was about 12, 13. That's why I started hanging about in Cardonald. So this happened, and the Biggins had sort of moved away by that time, but he had went to Largs and they'd set up a shop down there punting gear, punting hash, all this kind of stuff. So they would show up back in Drummoyne every now and again and they'd be telling us about this great life that they had carved out for themselves, you know what I mean, down on the coast, and I thought that was always exciting. So then that happened to me and the door got chapped. My big pal, like, obviously speaking to my dad, oh, this is terrible, what's happened to him and all that, like, take him away for a couple of days and like let him get his head together and all that. But when I went to Largs, it was like 8 of the big ones who I grew up with and looked up to, were all staying in a house and like fucking punting all sorts, getting up to all sorts of naughty stuff, right?
Is that big in Largs, aye? Like
that kind of stuff. Well, this was mate. I always thought Largs was this
I
seaside with an ice cream shop.
Viking Gaff.
The Viking Gaff.
There's trap houses everywhere.
I ended up down there. Right, I ended up bringing my pals up that I was hanging about with in Govan to go do. See the Viking Gaff. You know, every year they have a festival. They have a festival on the front.
On the beach.
Set it on fire.
Right, aye. And they show you all the old swords and all that. We were all running about the beach. We took all the swords at the tents and all that. We were all running about. Carrying on, no fighting, but just winding it up. Right? Fucking 400-year-old swords and all that. Oh, crack, man. But it was, so at the back of Largs, there's a scheme, and it's a fucking proper scheme. All the same issues, same problems that we face in our city schemes. Big drug problems and stuff like that, and the boys that I'd been hanging about with, they were more into selling hash and stuff like that that time. They weren't into like harder drugs, but it went that way.
It always kind of see if you I've growing up seeing people around me growing up selling stuff and that. It always seems that the people who there might be people who sell hash or sell gear for 2-3 years, then they're like, I've made a bit of money, fuck it. But the people who end up staying in it 5+ years, it's a natural progression to go and sell because there's more money in it. Do you know what I mean? It's just
it's human greed in it.
That's what it is, and these guys are greedy by nature. That's why they don't want to work. But I used to look up to them and so they obviously took me around Largs, round doors and stuff, right? And I thought it was like, this was all just brilliant, man. And it was just before Christmas, I always remember that happened. I get stabbed in November and they were taking us in, so it was dead festive feeling. It was, I don't know, I just fell in love with the place. And but obviously looking back, he was taking me round doors and to saying to everybody, this is my nephew and all that, with the stitches and all that. And right, so that's what it turned into. So for me, it was 8 months for, right, you need to take. So I was running about just doing stupid stuff with him, and ended up getting into a lot of fights and that down there. And as I say, right, they started palling about with boys that was down there that were doing the brown and stuff like that. And I always knew about that, so when I grew up in Drummoyne, it was a heroin epidemic, right? Glasgow Uni came in and done studies and stuff on the place. I knew everything about it. By the time I started secondary school, I had cousins that used to sit with and stuff that would take it, so I could tell you everything about it, right? I could tell you how to set up your box, how to take it, what it smelled like, what it looked like. And I was sitting in this house one time, the boys used to punt hash snap for this house all the time. I was sitting there, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they'd started getting a lot of coke in, right? And they were saying they were turning it, but I wasn't interested in any of that. I really wasn't, right? A few buckets, but a hash, and I was happy playing the computer and then running a few errands or whatever. So he goes into the toilet saying they were fucking messing about. And I just remember sitting there, about half an hour passes, and I goes up and I goes to open the toilet door, and I only gets the door open about that much, and I could hear like tinfoil rattling, and I could smell it, and I was like, they're fucking tooting smack. Mate, I got off, right, 6 o'clock in the morning is the first train out of Largs, and this is what I'll always say about a lot of Drummoyne boys, right? Drummoyne boys kind of grew up with an education in what heroin is and what it does, and there's not a lot of us have actually turned to heroin.
Because you are exposed to how bad it is at an early age.
Where it is, mate. So I got off at 6 o'clock in the morning. I remember going home, and I'd been 16 by that time, because that was about 8 months and it was time in Largs. And I came home and I got myself an apprenticeship. And
was that a turning point the other way then?
Aye, 100%.
Get out of that.
That was where I was like, no, wait, in fact.
It's mad.
Been a fantasy. This has been a good ride.
Did it go from being like you felt like you were part of something to like you switched in your head? I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Like.
Totally being because they were like family at that time. Like really like family. You know what I mean? When I come home.
Carry on.
No, I'm just gonna say right when I come back. I just kind of try to drift away from it, but it doesn't leave you that easy, especially if you got a reputation. And where I stayed, right up to even before I went to London. I had people coming to my door asking me, dragging me into shit, getting me involved in stuff. Like, 33-year-old, done a degree in Glasgow Uni, community development, and still my pals, who I love, right, I love them, but were dragging me into things where I had guys at my fucking ma's door with swords, looking for them, smashing up motors in the driveway and all that. And that's when I was like, nah, this is fucking...
Fuck this, the mugs game.
See,
just, it's interesting you're talking about the way you went to Largs and then sold drugs there. That's similar to what happens in London, isn't it? Because see, in Glasgow it's more a case of like people will, that's our area, we run the drugs in this area. But in London it's a bit different. Can you explain how it kind of works different in London?
I can. It's fucking ugly at the minute, and it's the observations I've made up here about how the drug game works compared to London is very interesting, because one thing you've got up here that you really don't have at home, which was always like fascinated me, is the family thing. You've got families in areas, and like obviously you'll have like families in London, like you'll know families that are like, you know, about whatever, you know, but there's like families up there. Do you know what I mean?
Everybody knows the names.
Like, and in each area, and that's a funny sort of mafia style thing for me. But that was just a little point. But
the last one of that was the Cray twins down south, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like
well, exactly. You had that back, but you know,
the Adams family, mate. The Adams family. What a name, the Adams family. They are nasty guys, man.
The thing about London is it's such a sprawling metropolis now, and you know, I was speaking to my mate. I called a few friends up, and before I came on here, just to, you know, bounce off some ideas about what would be the most interesting thing to talk about. And honourable shout out to my friend Josh, because we had a long discussion about what should be talked about. But you know, there's a lot of different cultural influences in London, and you know, this is the drug capital of the United Kingdom, in probably just pipping Liverpool to the post there. But so you've got huge operations running there, huge, that are supplying the rest of the country, where the drugs are coming in. You've got international gangs, South American, Albanian, Russian, etc., you know, that are laundering, you know, billions of money. And but as you were saying, yeah, one of the things that's spoken about so much now is obviously county lines, and I guess I could offer an explanation of what county lines is.
Just even break it, because like I've heard country lines out in Cunch, and the songs that I listen to.
Yeah.
But I never knew until you explained it. So can you explain like how that works?
Yeah, so county lines is essentially, and I think the thing about county lines is it's been around for decades, but I guess there's more money in it now. The media is onto it now. It's obviously rapped about a lot, but very simply put, county lines is the distribution of predominantly crack and heroin from urban centres out into the country. So London, Birmingham, Manchester and Liverpool are really the big hubs of distributors. So London will do the southeast, Essex, Cambridge, Kent, all down the south coast. Liverpool will do Wales, Manchester, the northwest, etc., Birmingham, the Midlands. And essentially what happened was, and as I say, it has been going on for a long time, but there's so much competition within the city that people realised that there was a lot of money to be made going out to one town where if there was a heroin dealer there, the quality probably wasn't that good. Were they willing to use serious violence? And you know, the country has huge amounts of poverty, desolate little seaside towns that used to be, you know, Victorian tourist destinations that have now
places like Brighton and Eastbourne.
Exactly, Eastbourne, Ramsgate, you know, places like that have huge heroin and crack problems, you know, and you get a well-organised gang, they've got a good supply of crack and heroin, that go down, and you know, I remember asking a friend I had who was involved in a county lines operation in the south, and I was asking him about how he started it up, and he was just like, it was initially so easy. He was like, I went down to the town centre, got a train, 10 reps of crack on me, 10 reps of heroin, go and find a homeless person. Within the second or third person, you know, you give them a free wrap, etc. Often what is done is you go and they call it cuckooing. You know, you set up camp in the addict's house. They obviously know all the other addicts. You either intimidate them or you pay them in crack and heroin, the bando, the trap spot, and then you move joint each time, there is a little bit of a media frenzy about it. You know, like the reality is that drugs are being sold everywhere, and it's also been going on for a long time. It likes to be, but I think what's really problematic about it and why a light is being shone on it is that vulnerable children are used to transport the drugs because they're expendable.
So they're getting sent out from London?
They're getting sent out, and what that will look like, you know, is you get a young boy or a young girl who gets groomed. They'll get, you know, a G-pack, which will be a pack worth about £1,000, heroin and crack, all wrapped up. They'll have to plug it up their arse, and they'll have to spend 2 weeks being, you know, on the trap phone 24/7, dealing with addicts, but you know, the pressure and paranoia that brings, dealing with potentially getting nicked, dealing with getting robbed, potentially killed because it's a brutal game.
Aye.
And you know, and if you get robbed, you know, where's my £2,000?
Fucked,
You know, you don't.
Police.
And we're talking about, you know, when you're a young kid and you find yourself, and all you know is your estate in London, Birmingham, Manchester, and then you find yourself in, you know, Macclesfield, and you're in a heroin addict's house, and you spend your whole time around heroin addicts, probably 10, 15 years your senior, and that's your reality. You want to talk about trauma, you know, you want to talk about paranoia, and you know that is an epidemic. That will fucking do you in big time.
That is fucking
So it is a serious issue, you know, and I don't know, yeah.
Aye, it's just interesting how it works differently, and I think it's just because Scotland's quite small. I think it's easier to compact it and go, this is our area, this family runs this area, whereas as you're saying, there's so much competition in London, like, to sell drugs, that they've obviously clicked on and thought, we'll just send them out here.
A question I'd put to probably Kev predominantly, but maybe all of you, would be like, since I've been here, I've been like, Scotland, and I know that there are county lines running up to Scotland, you know, up to all sorts, you know, all the way up to Aberdeen and stuff like that. It's obviously a longer way. I always thought Scotland would be an unbelievable county lines destination, you know, if you were looking to, you know, but it doesn't seem like, it seems like gangs within Glasgow and drug distribution networks within Glasgow maintain control over it. But it does. I haven't had any kids whilst I've worked up here that have been being sent out to Motherwell.
I'd never
I
even
don't
heard
know what
that
that
happening
is
until you told me. What were you going to say there, Kev?
No, I just think that the families up here are so embedded, aren't they? Like, mate, I think you said earlier, kind of, it's like mafia, like. I never really thought of that, but in a sense it is. And every scheme used to have its family, and every scheme family would have their ducat or something. They don't have a symbol.
It's funny as well, because like what would happen is you'd be in school, right, and like you'd be like that, there'll be a wee guy walking about getting wide with everybody, right, and they'd be that height, you know what I mean, they'd be like there on me, and I'm quite small, and you'd be like, who's this wee dit? And you'd be like, nah, his family's fuck. That was always a thing, he's related to this guy, you're like, oh fuck, we can't touch him, kind of thing. It's mad, people are known by their family name,
definitely.
like he's a whatever name.
Kev, do you, I mean, why do you think that there isn't, or maybe there is, like, why isn't, like, or maybe it's, as I say, maybe it's not just being publicised, that like Glasgow drug distribution networks aren't shifting their gear out in Greater Lanarkshire and Larks, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you were a young version of that. I don't know.
So the reason we ended up in Larks, right, was the top boy that where I grew up in Drummoyne at that time. He was quite a wee guy, right, scruffy guy with ginger hair, and he met a lassie that was foot there. And her dad was quite wealthy, right? So when he went out there at first, like, the dad had gave him a flat and all that, and he was trying to change his life. So it was like, when he first came back to Govan, he was like, no, I'm a different guy. Call me, right, I'll not give you his full name, but it's like, call me Gary now, but we used to always call him his second name. I was like, who's this guy? Didn't take long until I went back to his old tricks. So he's sitting in his house, he's looking at all these people here, all the dope dealers are all soft, so he just started punting, and then it was like, if I get my pals down here, I could maybe up it a bit. Something up. So it wasn't like, wasn't an organised sort of drug program. Aye.
Do you know what I think it is as well? I think geographically the size, like, see, you're saying why don't people in Glasgow, like, it's so easy to just drive from Glasgow to Lanarkshire. You've got people just going. It doesn't take long to get to places, so that's why they can centralise it, maintain it.
Also, what I do know about is like people just sell to. Like, so these wee towns pay more than like,
and you'll have a man
it's just like they'll just meet a guy for there. Like, I actually know of it happening like a few times here. It's like just wee towns like Gilphead and shit, there'll just be like a guy there that's wanting to start punting. They'll meet people from Glasgow and he'll just be like, right, geez this, and he'll just come down, get it, drive back up way, and then
rather
he
than
punts
sending somebody
rather than somebody like, because you're making more money off them because they've got lesser access to it. So instead of sending somebody out to no pure dime bags, you know what I mean, like they wear bags to make more money, it's just like we'll just charge them more and they can sell it for dearer, you know what I mean.
I remember seeing a guy, someone sent me obviously everything's done through Snapchat now, and that is just crazy to me, you know, but it's a marketing,
and Snapchat's like an app, and it's an app that like up here, I've noticed, especially with me liking like drill music and that, like they're always on, like you'll get somebody for like somewhere in London, like a gang member, and he'll be like recording himself like in the other scheme. I'm just going to talk like Scottish because I don't know the terminology, like cool. He'll be in like another, like the rival scheme, and he'll be like chasing people, and it'll be everything's on Snapchat. But see up here, see if you use Snapchat over the age of maybe 25, you're probably a bit of a beast, to be honest. But it's a pure different thing in London.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I haven't had Snapchat since I was 18. I mean, I'm not really on any social media. I just fucking don't like it. But like we in our work obviously see kids using it like crazy. But just noticing how drug distribution is done through Snapchat as well was fascinating, really. And like I remember seeing being shown videos and pictures of quite a notorious drug dealer in Glasgow a few years back, filming. You know, he would film just sort of huge bricks of cocaine on a swing, and he would sell everything on there, and it would all be on Snapchat. I mean, he clearly thought he was invincible. And I remember also being shown him saying, any drivers looking for work in Stornoway, places like that.
Just like advertising it.
Just advertising it. Just so blatant. You may well know who he was a pretty notorious figure. But I remember my mate showing me it, and me just seeing it, and I was like, this is insane. I mean, the self-incrimination there is just wild.
But then there's I think the different cultures, man, like in Scotland and England, you can see that through the way gangs and that are organised too.
But you can talk about that because you were actually in Brixton, so
that's what I mean. Even like down there, I think the organisation, that's the thing that always got me. Right, so the organisation down there and the way it's set up probably comes for the fact that you got guys coming in through, you got Russians, you've
100%.
I mean, the thing that I loved about like Loughborough Junction and stuff like that was the South American community. You get into places and it's just all Colombian, like restaurants and all that.
Everyone's living in a wild joint.
A wild joint. You liked it, mate, it's amazing. The only reason I'm back is because COVID kicked in and we kept trying to work, we kept trying to get through it, and then eventually just everything shut, man, and it was fucking crap, man. But obviously it'll open back up one day. I might get back, I don't know. Again, that came about by chance. That was nothing that I had planned.
So you lived in Brixton?
I stayed in Brixton, aye.
Was it rough? Like, could you see it was quite a rough area?
Mate, I need to be honest, right?
Pussies.
Right? No, it was like anywhere in London, mate. I went. I think I was that excited that it overran any kind of fear, you know what I mean, or what might happen here. I was just that excited. You know? Like, even getting to Peckham, people might go, Peckham's a bit notoriously dodgy. I said, Peckham, man, we're trying to find landmarks where I've maybe seen Del Boy and Rodney, you know what I mean? And then I found this wee fucking yellow freewheel van that they'd put up. I'm jumping off buses, man. My missus is like, what is this guy doing? Mad Scottish guy.
But this is sorry, I was just going to say quickly, this is the thing, is this is why I said it would be so brilliant to be a Glasgow region in London. It's just that, like, and I found this up here, is that because, you know, like, I remember I was working in East House, Crown Hill for a time, right, and those areas were notorious and people hear about them and they're like, oh, and I, you know, when I was working at youth centres late at night there, I would always get the train and I would, you know, walk home from the train once we shut up at about 9 o'clock at night, just through the park, because I was prepared that if anyone approached me, I'd just be like, all right, and then they'd be like, what? And I'd be like, they're just like, what are you doing there? And then I tell them I work in the community, and I've never had a hint of conflict up here.
See what's weird about that as well, like kind of what you were talking about, just being down there and just being like sound. My pals always said that, see, like being for here, it's like no matter like any place in the world, you wouldn't be scared of a cunt. So you could be in like a mad hangar in Colombia where they're doing all this mad shit, and you'd be like, you wearing that mad bandana for and all that. I mean, he's all doing, you're talking funny, no?
I think as well, but see when you're not from an area, right? So like there's areas here that we would know probably walking through, you're like, we need to be wary, but because you're like naive to that, there's all that, it gives you, it's like a false confidence almost, and it was probably that's probably you never felt threatened in London, and you never
and
feel
some of it was
here.
probably stupid.
But the reality is 9 times out of 10 nothing's going to actually happen to you, and it shows.
That's it, mate. And most of I would say some of the coolest interactions I had in London came at random times. When I first went, we were Hackney, right? So we get put in the hotel in Hackney to work. I went down there to work. We were doing like pipe fitting and stuff, and all the boys smoked green, right? So couldn't sleep one night. I was like, I'm going to go down and have a joint, right? Fucking 1:30 in the morning in Hackney, right? There's mad cunts kicking about, fucking shouting and screaming. No, it's pretty quiet, but I didn't feel, as I said, I didn't feel what a place. And then this boys came over and he started talking to us, and he's obviously smelt the joint, you know what I mean? And he's like, started the conversation. He's like, it's just I'm a photographer and I go in at night, and he's like, you've got a great light behind you. And I say, you are drawing this joint, man. It smells great. And I said, here. Smells great. I'm a photographer. Just took a picture of me, right, and gave me his card for his website. And he's like, great picture. I was like, okay, whatever, man, whatever. So I goes back up, and then I'm telling my pals the next morning, they're like, I say, I'm telling you. I'm like, nah, bullshit. And I give them the card, man. I can't remember the guy's name and all. And they fucking typed it in, man. There's a picture of me storing. And they're looking into the distance.
That great light behind you.
That's one of my favourite stories.
But that's what I found in London all the time.
Collection 26, I wanna fuck you. Guys, always sponsored by Collection 26, always wearing the garments. Look at this.
Best of gear.
Magnificent. Jamie, tell me how you feel in that t-shirt, mate.
I feel like summoning the powers of Dragon Ball Z.
Oh my goodness. That sounds dangerous.
See what I'm going Super Saiyan, bro?
Is there a warning that that t-shirt comes with it?
No, there isn't.
Thank God.
You just need to be very careful.
Aye, guys, so obviously Collection 26 sponsoring us, the OGs of the show for day one. Sponsored the show. We love them very dearly, so go and check them out. All the links will be in the description. They've got a big sale on actually.
Aye, Black Friday
sale, so go check that out. Also, when you're at the checkout, always use the code Reilly's Gaff, 10% off. Order all sorts, 10% off. That could, if you order like 16 hoodies, you could get a good amount off that.
Aye. So like realistically, you could get like £1,000 off your order.
But you just need to spend a lot. But
aye.
You should do that anyway, because it's the best.
It's a grand off. Like, do you not want a grand off?
You're an idiot.
Are you
fed
daft,
off of you
bro?
idiots, man. Aye, so go check them out, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, trips.
Oh my God, look at the state of you. You've absolutely got no money, man.
Are you a broke boy?
Little fucking broke boy.
Are you a little fucking broke bitch boy?
I've got some good news for you, you little broke boy. We have a solution for you. That solution is called Investor Watch UK. Now, our good friends at Investor Watch UK, let me rattle it off again. 4 contributors, 20 years experience between them.
That's unbelievable.
Multiple 6-figure investments. And they're going to share their knowledge with you guys. So you want to get into trading crypto, trading Trading shares.
Trading shares.
Trading shares, if you want to get into that, or trading shares. All of this stuff, guys, you want to get into that, Investor Watch UK, go to the description of this video, you'll get a month free. How good's that?
Can you believe that? You get a month free and you're making dough.
You've got a month to get out of this financial situation you're in, so use it wisely.
And we know you're in it, so.
Go and check them out, guys. Cheers.
Right, cheers.
Jamie,
Evan.
you want to show a bit of respect and take that fucking hat off, mate?
No, I missed.
Take the hat off, Jamie.
No, because we usually go to Myles and Co, but I didn't go this week and I don't want to show it.
Show some respect for the podcast,
No,
Jamie.
because I want to, no, I'm not doing it, Evan. Tell them about Myles and Co.
Myles and Co are in the West End, they're great barbers. Campbell cuts my hair, he's fantastic, he's got gentle hands. Get down there, guys, Byres Road. And as always, with every single sponsor, we're getting you dollars off so that you don't need to wear a hat like this rude young man.
I'm sorry.
Yes, he's very sorry
I'm
about
sorry.
it. Get down to Myles and Co, tell them Reilly's Gaff sent you. Also, when you're booking them through Booksy, write it in the notes, Reilly's Gaff, and you'll get money off.
Or as usual, write it in your head and they might give you it for free.
If you go in with Reilly's Gaff wrote with a permanent marker on your forehead, I'm gonna just throw it out there, you'll probably get a free haircut.
Aye. Don't do it in a mirror, but because it will say like
I'll be back. Aye, backwards.
Aye, something backwards, aye.
But aye, go see them, guys. All that info will be in the description. Check them out. The best about.
Cheers,
Myles and
troops.
Co. Pow-pow.
I want sweeties! Evan, you know about my sweeties in ages.
You're a grown man, Jamie.
No, I want sweeties. We've not been at Dinos in so long. When can we go to Dinos?
Jamie, you're actually a grown man. Get it for yourself.
That's sweeties.
You see what happens to this boy when I don't take him to Dinos for his ice cream and his slush? Devastated. Devastated, right?
I just want to go to Dinos.
Jamie, shut the fuck up. So, get down to Dinos, guys. As I say, institution in Cambuslang, okay? When you're rough on a Sunday, there's only one place to go, Dinos. Slush, ice cream, sorted, right? So when you get down to Dinos, you've got all your American sweets that cost a bomb, mate.
Aye, they do. Not in Dinos, but...
Aye, what I'm going to say is, but they won't cost a bomb because we're getting you 20% off your order at the end of it.
More money off shit.
Order all sorts, say, oh, by the way, because I can imagine it maybe be a bit of an awkward situation, pure, excuse me, mate, Reilly's Gaff. Like, so just say it with your chest. Do you know what I mean?
I say you kick your door in. Don't kick the door in, just
No,
bust in.
We're not condoning any
and
vandalism in the store.
shout, Reilly's Gaff, and they'll just...
Sort of metaphorically do that, sort of like barge in for a spunk and go here, Reilly's fucking Gaff, and you'll get money off your sweets. How can you argue with it? You can't, so stop trying to. Thanks, guys.
Cheers. So I was wondering, I don't know if it's just like how I feel about it, but I feel like in London, like the gang violence is really centred towards like making money, like selling drugs, like this kind of. But in Glasgow, it's more, as I say, how I feel, it's more like just people just going for it, just scrapping, just wanting to, and it's as if you're not getting anything out of it. Like in London, it's like if we do this and we do that, we can do this and we can make money, and that's what we'll get. But here it's just violence
people fighting for the sake of it.
ultra violence for ultra violence.
I think definitely a big sort of entrepreneurial culture in London. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Right.
And I think you're right, mate. It's a good observation, one. I think there's a dream on a lot of the young guys that are growing up in the estates there, and it is that dream to make it. I'll be the top boy coming for that type of mentality, and then everybody will fall in with me. It doesn't happen like that in Glasgow. I grew up in a scheme, and it never crossed my mind I could be the top dog here. It only crossed my mind that I could get to a point where I'd be good enough that the people who are powerful would accept me and I could maybe work with them. And I never wanted to date, but I'm just saying that was the mentality. So it was always, you're always trying to fight to join the Glasgow sort of gang culture
instead of taking over.
Whereas rather than taking over, mate. I think that in London, that mentality.
No, that's fascinating actually, and that's definitely what I saw, and you're absolutely right, Kev. That's it. Is a very entrepreneurial mindset in London. You know, it's a city of money. You know, I think that's the bottom line. And there's so many influences and complexities to it, but
you've got accountants in Canary Wharf making fucking...
No, 100%. And actually, again, I mean, I touched on West London earlier, but I think one of the things that also makes West London unique as well, and you'll hear that through a lot of the musicians that have come out of West London, is that because there's that wealth on your doorstep, there's more of a, you observe that
It's
on the
reachable.
daily,
They feel like
and
it's
you'll know
reachable.
people. You'll be, and so there is a more of a money getting mindset. And what was interesting when I came up here was one of the first areas I worked in, which was Notorious. I went there, and the first couple, we did a late night youth centre there, and the first couple of times I met the boys that were running around there, the first thing I thought about was, fuck, these lot are disorganised. Like, this is like, they're barely, they were fucked the whole time. Like, they didn't, like, there was no, like, maybe one of them was punting a little bit, but, like, there was not a money getting mindset.
It wasn't like a scheme.
We get pissed, we hold bottles of bucket at police cars. Don't get me wrong.
Is it maybe like,
they were rolling with weapons?
That is cool.
They were rolling with. They weren't like, they were kicking about doing not shit, but it was a group getting together, getting fucked up, and let's see what happens.
so do you think it's maybe like disillusionment here, like? In London, it's like, no, we've got these people that make money, we can do it this way, but here it's just like
Nobody's making money almost.
that's so unreachable.
We're so blind, like because it's certain families and certain people, we're a bit more distant for like getting to that top stage,
the powerful stage.
So you just want to make enough so that, see, be honest, in Glasgow, most people who deal right at a low level, they just want to make enough so that whatever they're taking out it is free.
Aye,
that is actually the reality.
I think there's also a mentality that exists as well in schemes where, right, this is something I always noticed down here, where it's always the hardest one, it sells gears or whatever. It's not like the guy with the super brains, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always, because see when the guy that's got the brains starts to punt the gear, the hard one will take it off him anyway.
Aye.
So it's like, no, this is my fucking scheme, right? So you're not going to sell gear
Pure survival of the fittest,
it done. Aye, and I think the imagery and all that in terms of like down in London, everything is just geared towards take what you can, get what you can.
No, there is an imagery, and the point I was going to lead on to with that, which was again another one of the sort of stark observations I made when I came up here, was just how based around consumption the gang culture was. So again, the first thing I noticed was this was a group of, in the areas I was working in, predominantly white boys getting together, getting fucked up and seeing what will happen. And in London, depending on what area you go to, you will get a very different ethnic makeup of the gangs. The gangs come in all shapes, sizes and colours. It's a beautiful thing, really. But I think that because, and again, I was speaking to my friend about this, and we hashed this out a lot because it's a very interesting topic. But I think because because black culture is so dominant on the urban scene in London, musically, culturally, and because black culture is always cool, it's always like, it always has been, whether it's in America or the UK, and it's still 100% that case in London. There's not a culture of consumption within black culture, particularly for hard drugs, and so you're much more likely, if you were to take Shepherd's Bush for an example, if you were doing youth work in Shepherd's Bush, you would not find scenes like that of them getting pissed in a park and then seeing what happened. They will drink, but the predominant drug of consumption will be weed. But you will not find them sniffing coke.
Yeah,
it's taking pills. They'll be getting sold, but they won't be getting taken.
So it's not because of that culture, and it's obviously the culture in London. See, we're like obviously we've got drill music on the rise. It's more popular than ever, and it's actually quite a new thing, drill music, because when you were younger, probably in London, it was like grime music, and then grime,
Skinny Man and all that kind of stuff. When I was growing up,
but now it's developed into this sort of who's the most nuts, who's stabbing the most people,
who's the most nasty.
I listen to it, right? I can't be like, don't listen to this, guys, like, but I can listen to it and no think this is really cool, I'm going to go and do this. Whereas the youngsters in London are probably looking at these guys in these gangs making music with their Gucci scarves and their bottles of Hennessy and smoking Cali packs and all this shit, and
100%.
they're like, that's what I want to be. Do you think the drill music in London, the rise of it, do you think that's increased the gang violence and gang sort of activity? Or is it just a social commentary?
It's $1 million question, really, because it's you know, the $1 million question is, why are young people killing each other? It always is, and it's kind of a impossible question to answer at times. But the debate around drill music, it was always, you know, it was very much pushed to the narrative. You know, look at this corrupt generation. And actually, I was reading a thing today. I was looking over a few things that I'd read and written before I came on here, and there's a guy that writes about historical amnesia, and generations. You know, the youngest generation is always the craziest. Oh, this one's out of control.
Yeah.
Whether it's the post-war family unit breaking down, or whether it's, you know, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
The 60s and shit.
Deindustrialization, and this one is, they're all listening to drill music. They're all on social media. They're all off their tits. You know what I mean? So. And then there was a movement to ban drill music. That's insane.
No, it's nuts,
you know,
man.
because
Like freedom of speech.
They're making it more popular.
exactly, and also, you know, there's a few arguments to it. I mean, one, how are you going to ban? You know, if some of these people are making a career out of music, and many of them have, how are you going to ban their only outlet? And two, what are you
That's
doing?
just being
Why are
more
they're
oppressive,
not,
innit?
Why are they killing each other? That's the question you have to ask.
It's deeper.
Why are they making
as Kev will know this, and this is what we talk about in community development a lot, taking away drill music, saying no, you can't make those songs, it's putting a plaster over the problem. You're not going to the root cause of why.
Deeper rooted.
That's it.
So, but what I will say is that to say that drill music has no influence whatsoever would be untrue.
It's
because
dismissive.
It does.
These things are cycles, isn't it? Because it's culture. It's a cultural cycle.
Yeah.
It's like you're projecting something, but then it's being reinforced back to you. Somebody else growing up, then that starts to appear as natural. So then, if you know, you've got these young boys thinking that they are these kind of gangsters, and you're
There'll always be like
class guy.
there'll always be like media dramatisation of shit that's going on. Know what I mean? Like, and it's just like that's what's popular in culture, and then that's also coincided with like gang violence and stuff. But it happened before. Not I mean, it will happen again.
Exactly. And what I talked about earlier about us kind of doing a switcheroo, like, you guys used to be the murder capital of Europe. You know, that was your title.
No, the
in
friendly city
in the early 2000s. You know, and now you've got, you know, the Glasgow model is being sent down to London, and Glasgow's hailed as this city, which sometimes I think is a bit. It's a bit of, you know.
So
Like, people playing numbers games, isn't it?
Exactly.
What is it with the thing? It's like Denison's the 8th coolest city in the world.
I've seen that.
Coolest place.
It's like no, it was like the 8th coolest like neighbourhood. It's like a neighbourhood they say, and it's like
Mate, it was above places in Copenhagen. It was above like Copenhagen. Places there, it was above like places in LA, places in New York,
places in. I think these lists gets like, these are just people trying to be quirky, like, oh, Denison's such a cool, because it's got like a good pizza place now. You know what I mean? It's like, Denison's so cool.
It's Denison barbecue, mate.
But see, obviously we're talking about Denison barbecue.
Shout out to them.
Maybe that's what won them.
I tried that a few weeks ago, and that was an unbelievable spot.
But what you were saying though is that what's it called again? RVU or something?
The VRU.
VRU.
Yeah. They I mean, again, I'm sure Kev can speak about this as well. But they were set up in 2007, 8. I don't want to butcher that stat. And they were like, from what I can remember, they were kind of set up to try to address the crisis that was going on in Glasgow, but their main role was really to link up organisations. So the NHS, the police, community-based organisations, and essentially get the communication between those between all those different entities rock solid. So I mean, they always talk about this kind of not cliche things, but like buzz things that they talk about like if someone had been stabbed in hospital, you'd have like someone, an outreach worker would be there when they wake up. And you take my number and we can put you in touch with so and so, and then they'll get in contact with the organisation with the area that they're from. Right, who's he? You know who's he running about with, etc., etc. Do you want to get out of this lifestyle? Here's X, Y, and Z for the options. And it was hailed as,
on paper. That sounds good. That sounds like it works. Do you know what I mean?
I think that some people and organisations within the city maybe think, these things get talked about, and like as you say, they sound very good, and it was good. I think maybe some organisations within the city were, felt that maybe they were really putting in the groundwork, and obviously everyone knows about the VRU.
Was it the vehicle? Violence reduction unit, and that went down to
because they apparently like
it's going down to London.
They solved knife crime up here. Boom, solved it. Boom, no knives up here anymore.
No, that's the thing.
And then they get sent down to London. To, like,
eighth coolest city in the world.
Our model is gonna, we're gonna go down there.
But there's still Wayne's dying. Know what I mean? There's still fucking wee guys getting stabbed.
I think Glasgow over the years, man, Glasgow's became like masters at playing the numbers games. Like from playing in community development and being able to see that for like working in the first sector and seeing how people tap things up and dress things up to be what they're know. I think Glasgow's became great at that. They've probably done the same with the numbers for the violence reduction. I'm not saying the work that the guys didn't put in wasn't valuable, and I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, let's be honest, man, through even everybody here now, you'll be able to see it in your life, like violence in this city, every city, everywhere, it peaks and troughs all the time.
Yeah.
So that 30% less for that 3 years might not have directly
exactly
correlated.
Coincided.
What the big question about Glasgow was what worked in this city, and because poverty hasn't got any better.
No.
People aren't living any better. Yeah, it's got, wealth disparity is growing.
It's growing in the whole UK.
Why? But then that begs the question: well, is it going to go back to that? And that's I think
history repeats itself, doesn't it?
I don't think anyone should be under the illusion that Glasgow can't slip back into
even just
or evolve into something worse.
Exactly.
Slipping back about what are we getting into next? That's
see, just
the question.
Talking about what we're getting into next, and obviously we were talking about drill music. Obviously we work in in high schools, and we see these kids who are at these ages where they're forming these opinions on what they want to be and who they are and what they're about, and you can hear them listening to like drill tunes and that, and like it's mad because I feel like that culture, like the coolness of like going out with a blade and all this shit, and I've chased this man and I wet him up, but all this shit, I feel like it's seeping into Glasgow because drill music is getting so popular in Glasgow. I feel like, as I say, at my age, I can be like, this is fucking good music, I like listening to it, I like fucking being in my car, kidding on, I'm holding the shooters. I'm never holding the shooters, mate. I know that's stupid. Fruit shoots, I am about 2 fruit shoots, boom, boom, boom. But
it's like the same reason you watch an action movie.
You're not going to go out and fucking kill somebody. But like these, I feel, this is just an opinion, and I'm no saying ban drill music, but I feel like, just for what I'm observing, I feel like these young people are like picking up on these wee things.
No, I think it's like the same as like, see when people say like, oh, it's like playing Call of Duty and all that, it's playing all these games.
It's a bit different.
But I think you should be able to separate entertainment.
But what I'm saying is, but these kids are fucking 12 to like 17, they're susceptible, they don't know who they are yet, mate, so like they're hearing these things thinking that's fucking cool as fuck, and they've got a wee gang of pals and they're like that, they all listen to it and they're like that.
Why aren't we carrying blades? That's why aren't we rolling like that? Why aren't we,
exactly.
we've just been scrapping up until I think you're right.
I've seen young people in Glasgow on TikTok, like a lot of young people use TikTok, right? People from Edinburgh talking about we chased our ops. Mate, they can't fucking know what the word ops meant out here till about a year ago, mate. No, I mean, that just shows it's seeping into the culture.
Hugely.
But this is where this is a question sort of I wrestle with sometimes. Like working in the school, I see So I see it, there's a type of kid, right, that I recognise maybe that I would have grew up with, and I see them walking about with their wee pals in the school and they don't really engage with even with us, you know what I mean? But then I see other kids come in, wee guy for Drum Chapel, you don't know who I'm talking about, and he's always talking about drill music and stuff like this, and he's always talking about, oh, this guy went out for this estate and stabbed this guy in the head, so he gets 50 points and all that, right? There's a mad thing they've got on social media, you'll be able to explain it better.
The scoreboard, they're always...
What I'm noticing is that, right, so there's kids in the school who aren't being accepted by the groups that exist, so what they're doing is looking for something else, and I think that's dangerous, because then what you've got is to start to get turned on by knives and shit like that. So then you've not got a group mentality, you've not got a gang mentality, you've got a lot of dangerous young people that are alienated, isolated, and they think, if I go and stab this fucking cunt in the head, I could end up on one of these things. I could end up with a fifth. No, you'll never be that, because you're not part of that structure.
I completely agree.
I think it's deep rooted to, like, obviously that does play a part. Like, the thing about drill music is maybe that's that, because that is heavy. Like, when you're listening to it, it's heavy and nasty, like the day pure but we listened to rap and shit when we were younger, and like grime and that. I did talk about stuff, but the thing I think about, like, this is a pure layman's view, because I know nothing about this, but it's just like we guys feeling like disconnected for like being able to do anything, and it's like it's as if we guys get forgotten about here. And I don't know if it's the same down in London, but it's just like, they'll just do that and they'll just work their job and they'll just, like, that's them. You know what I mean? And it's like they kind of feel like they're not a part of the community, do you know what I mean? Not a part of society properly. So you try to find something in something else, man. So you get hooked into this shit. It's
Definitely.
Like, and you see the music videos, and there's 30 of them, and they're all stunning, and they're like, these are my fucking boys, and I'm never like never leave a bra behind and all that shit. And like they like, I want that camaraderie. I want people to put their arm around me, but you're some boy.
It's just a pop. I mean, this is nothing new.
Aye.
It's just a very popularised media form of it that is popping right now. But I have to say, Kev's hit the nail on the head there for me about how it's influencing Glasgow and all over the country, is that it's become it's become entertainment, and because of the way that social media warps these things, there is a scoreboard. I hate that fucking word, but it's true. There is a scoreboard entertainment mentality, and you know, kids think they know what's got. It's a game. It's a game, and it's all about getting one up, and it's all about losing face, and it's all about gaining face. But you know, losing face is getting stabbed. I mean, you know what was really interesting when you was talking there about you got stabbed and you were almost getting paraded round. But as you get stabbed now, and it's like that's minus points.
He took an L. Yeah.
So you know, if you're the ultimate driller, you will have stabbed or killed. You know, if you've got, you know, the ultimate is, so and so's got, you know, 3 bodies to their name, i.e., but they've never been touched.
I think this is a great sort of point there, mate, between how things play out in the digital world and how they play out in the real world, right? Yeah. So I think that's a great point, right? See if you get stabbed, right, in this digital world, you can then become a figure of ridicule. You get stabbed, you must be a dafty, right, blah blah blah. And it's easy to do that through a digital thing. See if you're living in a street and you know the boy who runs about whatever, and then you get stabbed, you don't start to think he's a dafty. I could probably stab that. You know what? These wee guys.
That's what's fascinating about it.
It is fascinating, because that's what I'm saying. 2 different realities, and when these two realities meet, what you'll find is a whole lot of wee guys that have sat on YouTube getting fucking tore to shreds. Because there is still that element of young people out there who are fighting.
It's wild.
Yeah, but I think see what you said, mate. That goes back to see what we're talking about with Jimmy Reid, right? Jimmy Reid,
full circle.
Always comes back to Jimmy Reid. He gave this speech, right, when he got made director of Glasgow Uni, and the title of the speech is called Alienation. You know what I mean? Every word in this speech got printed in the New York Times, right? And they've got you can Google this, man, right? You'll see this. They titled it as the most important speech since Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, right?
That's
and the
mad.
New York Times, mate, a fucking cunt for Govan, right? Who studied in Ibrox Library, never went to uni or anything like that. And he gives this whole speech about this concept of alienation. And we're talking about it there, and I just love the way you're like, it's like a layman's terms, but this is what I'm thinking and feeling. And I felt that for years, and then I found out, like, Marxism
Aye.
Alienation.
Aye.
This is a thing, right, what you say, this isn't new. This is shit that's been going on for hundreds, thousands of years.
Aye. And that's not new at all. Do you know what I mean? That was ideas that have been perpetuated by him, but he's reading stuff for
they must have been
Spain
there for that
500
long.
years before and shit.
They must have been there for that long that this guy's had time to think about it, distill it and turn it into fucking theories.
Aye.
So this is how humans have interacted with each other for probably for as far back as it goes.
Aye.
And I just think, right, it's a shit way to live your life if you feel alienated, cut off, do you know what I mean? Disenfranchised, not connected to your fellow human beings, man. That is the worst place to be.
Aye,
Like, I've been
is.
in shit situations and I've had my fucking head kicked in. I've been through situations I wouldn't want to go back through again. But see the feeling that I had to go through of being cut off, being alienated, man, that is the worst feeling
Mate,
ever.
There's a quote, I don't know who it's by, but it says if you want to drive somebody mental, you don't need to drive them on a desert island, just alienate them for their peers. That's a pure thing, mate. It's John Paul Sartre or something said that, like before Marx, and that was like, that's what he was saying back then. I know that's the worst thing
I think
that a
as
human
well,
can feel, mate.
Aye, and that's how like you get even in America, going into America, you get these incel communities that are like never spoke to a girl, hate girls, and these are the people who go out and shoot up schools, shoot up girls. Know what I mean?
Man.
It might mutate into that, because that might be the next step, where you get these lone idiots who just go...
Aye, and it's you're right.
Direction, personally, I think
Because the people that are being so susceptible to this are maybe people that aren't accepted at anywhere else, and like they're like, this is my thing. And obviously when you're saying the entertainment aspect, the scoreboard, he's a top scorer, he's a prolific scorer, this is on these tunes. None of us have been touched, all this stuff, mate. They think, like, see the wee guys, we know them, right? Obviously I'm not gonna say it, but like we know wee guys, right, that like would really, they're that stupid that they think if they go and do that, they'll be the most popular guy in the school. And they really think that.
It's a scary thought,
It's
innit?
dangerous,
That
isn't it?
shit, mate,
you
aye.
probably think that they would be accepted by the people that are watching on YouTube. So if
Aye.
I was to do this, he could be my pal, like, I could be nuts just like him. Know what I mean? Like, no, you can stab somebody, the chances are. If you date in Glasgow, the chances are our cousin will come along and cut your fucking head off. No?
What do you think about watching stuff like that, right, and listening to the music, and like even if you wanted, see if a wee guy wanted to be that more than anything in the world, I think it would be hard. Like that's a pure difficult thing to do.
What,
Do you know what I mean?
stab somebody?
Like stabbing somebody.
Well, they
looking
always
at
say
somebody.
stabbing somebody. It's easy to shoot somebody, but actually stabbing somebody, it's an intimate,
do you
personal
think
thing.
Like how many wee guys think and want to and feel what they want to do that, jink, like, or they would all go through with it, or like.
No, I think
Do you know what I mean?
99%
There's a
would.
good scene in that film. You seen that film Sweet 16?
Aye,
Mark
aye.
Costin. There's a good scene in that where
Seen
they test him and they say, look, we want this guy stabbed, and they send him into the toilet to stab somebody, and as he goes to do it, they grab him and they're like, nah, wee man, we know you're going to do it now, so you're one of us, kind of thing.
Right.
And I think the overwhelming majority of young boys, if they get put in that situation, would shit their pants.
Aye.
And probably start
Yeah,
getting
I think you need to
man,
have
that's
something.
good. You know what I mean? That's I'm glad of that.
Aye.
But it's but obviously.
But again, the more that this is normalised to them. This guy got stabbed in the head yesterday.
Aye.
So he's moved up on the scoreboard. The more that's normalised to them, maybe the easier it becomes in that situation. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Because they're desensitised to it, because they're hearing it so much.
Mate, see how horrible is it to think of that's turned into a game, like a scoreboard?
That's what they say, a scoreboard, aye.
I've
And you
never
get
heard
more-
about that until
You
the
get
day,
more
mate.
points.
I
you
only
get-
found out.
There's YouTube accounts with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, you know, that are UK drill media, blah blah blah. It just, you know, different names like that that document, you know, and incriminate, gangs that and drill groups, you know, and you know, on the whole, I think it's probably who knows, probably a 30-year-old man in Kent.
I know.
That just loves the scene and thinks it's, you know, and is living out his Call of Duty
Honestly, there's
fantasy.
The ones you're talking about, mate, there's honestly hundreds of videos, and it'll be like, say, don't know, what this gang versus this gang, right? And it'll be like, this guy for this gang stabbed this guy and ran this guy off the road, so he gets 10 points, and like he stabbed this guy in the head, so he gets 20
It's
points.
so
and it's like,
wild.
and that's
It
why they
is.
talk about being
It's Call of
prolific
Duty
scorers.
shit, man.
Aye, and it's like, again, like even like the competition aspect to it, I'm the top boy. It's all feeding into this ego.
It's entertainment. It's a game. It's the game.
The game, mate.
It's turning into actual
That's
sport.
what it's like.
Commentating a sport.
Exactly. So
Did I not say that? Like,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
same
yeah.
analogy. I said, see these boys who young people are looking up to. They are the people who are in the streets doing the damage. They're like commentators. When you watch a game of football and the commentator is talking about the game, it doesn't mean that the guy can do a fucking overhead kick and score. You know what I mean? Amazing goals.
Aye.
He's just talking about it. But some of these kids can't separate what you're saying. It's a running commentary between the guys who are actually doing it. And it's a dangerous situation.
That's such a mad
Scary,
thought.
innit? Well, I think we would, after hearing Callum's Ibrox story, I think we should end it on the Ibrox story. So can you just tell us, obviously, when you first moved up here, what happened to you in the glorious stadium of the famous Glasgow Rangers?
Oh man, well, yeah, this is a funny story. Yeah, it involves a colleague of ours. I'll shout them out. Shout out the Twigster. I was working the summer camp, and it was hourly work, and I was skint, and you know I'm always up for new experiences, and we were working one day, and my mate was like, listen, he's a big Rangers fan, and he was like, listen, you know, I work security at Ibrox a lot, and my next door neighbour runs the security company that does all the security. It's just on the one stand. It's the stand where there's the club deck and the stand below. I can't remember what it's called, but that big stand on the side of the pitch. He said, "Listen, come along tonight." It was the Malmo game, big game. So I was just like, and he was like, "It's £9 now, blah blah blah," you know. And he was like, "Listen, it's a piece of piss, mate. Piece of piss. You just get to watch the game for free." Because I was like, I mean, you know, you look at me. I'm not a bouncer. You know, I'm certainly not a fucking bouncer in Glasgow. And I was like, I don't know, Twiggy, like it's like. I'm not like me, security at Ibrox, like, and he was like, "Don't worry, Cam. There, that you know, the Bears, we're one big family. You know, that's you know, we'll embrace you." So I was like, "All right," and I was kind of thinking, you know, I'm English, so maybe they'll all just pat me on the head. And just
God bless you, Queen, son.
Yeah.
God bless you,
So,
Queen.
yeah, so I was just like, I was just like, fuck it. So obviously, when you are a security at Ibrox, you need to come dressed correct. You know what I mean? So yeah, well, funeral suit.
Aye.
Funeral suit. None of which I owned. So I borrowed every single item of clothing from various other colleagues at the organisation. I think. One of our colleagues, I got her husband's old shoes and trousers
And his sash.
A white shirt, and then I rocked up to my mate's house and I had white Nike socks on, and my shirt was completely crinkled, and he was just like, "What are those socks?" And I was just like, you know, I thought it fitted in with the whole black and white thing going on, but
Scam music.
black socks, and then I had to take my shirt off, and I got it ironed twice. Once by his
Very staunch
friend, and then once by his cousin's girlfriend, I think. So I was.
Did he take turns at iron on it like you, Commander?
Oh, I went in. We went round to we were popping all around East House. Like,
Get it ironed off everybody.
So I'd had it ironed,
Right.
and then we go to pick up his cousin's missus and her daughter, and get in there, and they all, he's not going to Ibrox and that fucking shot.
Rangers.
Get it afternoon. So I've got a strip again, just in the living room. It gets ironed again. Anyway, so I'm ready now. You know, I'm ready to go to Ibrox, and then we get there, fluorescent jacket on, and then it's just like back of a van, and it's just fluorescent jackets, hats, and there's all sorts doing it. You know, it's just like 0 hour contract security jobby, and then So yeah, obviously I'm sold that this is going to be an easy deal, and you know, and I was like, you know, okay, this is going to be electric. I'd been to iBox once or twice, but they'd been for just, I think it was Killy at home, maybe Hearts at home, nothing special. But this was obviously the Malmo game, packed out, and the atmosphere was bouncing. But you know, people were on it,
of course.
and we got this big talk beforehand from the guy that like ran the club deck, and he was like, you know, very in a nice like navy blue suit and that, and he was like, oh, you know, any sectarian singing and any racial, any racial harassment, you know, come straight to me, you know, we will have them, you know, we will, yeah, exactly. And then he went further and he was like, also, you know, if you see any group of young lads and they've maybe got a Coke bottle that looks a bit too see-through, you know, just pull them up on it, you know, just maybe take a sniff, and then go take a sniff, and then, you know, just keep your eye out, kind of thing. And I'm thinking, what am I like we're gonna pull up groups of young lads and say that Coke's looking a bit too dilute. And then so this guy gives this whole spiel, so I'm like, all right, and then each of us are on our own gate, like on our own entrance, so we're right up top, so you know it's just me and Moan, and he was like, you know, chat to people as they come in. So I'm like, all right. Most people were just there, you know what I mean, to see the game. But obviously, yeah, I mean, people were fucked, man. And you know, he was telling us to put up people on diluted Coke bottles. I mean, people were just streaming in. I don't know who was searching them at the door, but everyone had bottles on them, glass bottles of Bucky. And anyway, about 5 minutes in, this guy rocks in, and I see him coming, and I'm like, fuck, man. And he's kind of got the black orange like Castore trackie going on. He's got the orange scarf, and like he is wired. He is wired, man, and he's charging. He doesn't know where he is, and he rocks up, and he's kind of just standing around. And I was like, all right, mate, like, have you got a ticket? And he's like, yeah, I've got a ticket, mate, but I've run out of data, so I can't show you it. And I was like, honestly, mate, couldn't care less, man, just find a seat, you know, because you can't stand here, you know. That's it. Anyway, and he's like, yeah, all right, mate. And he turns around, and then he pulls out full bottle like that, you know, just and he's necking it like that, and he's just singing like he's not even in tune with the game, like he's not even watching, and he's hurling sectarian abuse, and so like, and I'm just there like, right, okay, tick. And then so I got, but at this point, because he's now walked down the stairs a bit. And like this point, you know, like people in the stands are turning around, like, are you gonna kick this guy out? And I'm kind of looking at them like, can you help me? What am I gonna do? So I keep going up to him. I'm like, mate, just please sit down. I don't. You keep the bottle. I don't give a fuck, mate. I've come here for a shift. I just want to watch the game. Blah blah blah. And he's not having any of it, man. And like people are telling him to sit down. And he's like, I'll fucking bottle you fucking bastard. And I'm just like, so then, right, I'm gonna call this guy out right now, yeah. I go to find Mr. Club Deck, and I'm like, listen, there's a guy with an open bottle. He's standing in the middle, like he's abused me. He's abusing everyone in sight. His family, his bear family,
all the bears.
Yeah, all the bears, the big happy family, and we need to get him out. And he goes, would you be willing to give a statement, mate? And I was like, what? Sorry? And he was like, would you be willing to give a statement to the police? Like, have you seen an open container? And I was like, are you trying to treat me like a snitch? And I was just like, yeah, fine. Like,
let the bear enjoy the game.
Like, yes, literally. And I was like, yes, I'll give a statement. Like, just, you need to get him out. And he's like, right. Oh, he's like, well, I'll have to get the police, but they'll be about 7 minutes. So I'm like, so I go back out and I'm just trying to reason with this man. You know, I try and de-escalate any situation that goes on. So I'm just saying to him, I'm like, look, mate, why don't you just enjoy the game?
Try to get on his level.
You know, there's people just, you know, you're blocking people's views, blah, blah, blah. He's not there, man. That's it. He's not there. I don't think he's watching football. Anyway, eventually, the police turn up and they wait around, and I'm like, this guy, right. And so, and they're like, right, will you give us a hand with him? And I'm just like,
give us a hand with him?
Because there's two of them. So, you know, and he's got a bottle. I mean, he's got a bottle. Like, I just thought, you know, this guy's just going to crack me, right? So we go, and like, they kind of grab him by the arms, and like, he's kind of like, oh, fuck you, blah, 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 blah. And then me and Mr. Club Deck go and take left leg and right leg, and we're kind of going, and then boom, Morelos scores.
Oh my god!
Stadium erupts. I think it was Morelos. Stadium erupts.
Well, you like legging a wing in this guy out here,
and it's just, we're just there like fucking like, as it's just rattling like, and he's like, yeah, just like couldn't like, and then fucking anyway, we get him out, we drag him out, and I just come out. I've obviously missed the goal. They then went on to lose, and like I just saw, you know, Malmo score, and with no away fans there. And then we finished the game, and I see Mr. Cobdeck, and I was like, did they nick him? Like, did he? And he went, oh, you know, he just got sent on his way.
That's what happened, mate. They just shut him out the stadium. Like,
and I was like,
The police said, "We'll meet you in the lodge."
And
what are you doing there,
I
Mick? Just fucking keep yourself at
run into my mate, and I was just like, what the fuck did you sign me up there for? Me? And he was like, what happened? And I was like,
it's so funny. He's like, easy money, bro.
Easy money.
He's probably sitting watching. He's probably at videos.
But yeah, it was a fucking hilarious.
So no more
experience,
shifts
to be
tonight.
fair. No, I got a full-time job the next week.
Fuck, mate.
Yeah, it's lucky that guy called Mr. Club Deck worked in a club deck on it.
Yeah.
Some coincidence, that man.
That's like Mrs. Grubb, the food tech teacher in the school. That's brilliant.
That was absolutely class, man. I enjoyed that so much.
Mate, that was
Thanks
brilliant.
for coming on, Trips. Outstanding. You smashed it. So as always, subscribe to the channel, help us out, like the video, comment who you want to see next. Thank you guys. Cheers.
Cheers, Trips.